Hello hockey fans, and welcome back to another episode of Buyer's Remorse, the series where we look back at some of the biggest trades, signings, or other acquisitions in league history, but teams didn't quite get what they paid for. In today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at one of the biggest steals in recent trade history, as we explore why the Mika Zibanejad-Derick Brassard trade gave one team all the buyer's remorse. So let's begin by taking a look at the trade itself. On July 18th, 2016, the Ottawa Senators, who finished the 15-16 NHL season unable to clinch a playoff berth at 5th place in the Atlantic Division, announced that they had traded forward Mika Zibanejad and a 2018 second-round draft pick to the New York Rangers, who ended their season with a first-round playoff exit after finishing 3rd place in the Metropolitan Division in exchange for forward Derick Brassard and a 2018 7th-round pick. So the two teams each swapped a forward and a draft pick, with the Rangers getting the younger player and the higher draft pick, whilst the Senators got the older player and the lower draft pick. Pretty simple, right? Now, in order to properly understand why this trade was made at the time it was, let's shift our focus back a few years and explore both of these forwards' NHL careers up until this point. We'll start with the younger player of the two, Mika Zibanejad. The 6th overall pick by the Senators in the 2011 NHL entry draft, Mika Zibanejad spent the majority of the 11-12 season with the Swedish Hockey League's Djurgården IF and scored 13 points in 26 games, before moving over to North America full-time in 2012. The Swedish forward then spent the next 2 seasons bouncing between the AHL's Binghamton Senators and Ottawa's roster, until he earned a full-time spot on the Sens NHL team 6 games into the 13-14 season. Zibanejad then spent the rest of that season, as well as the next couple of years in Ottawa, reaching the 20-goal plateau in both of his 2 full years in the league, as well as hitting the 50-point mark during the 15-16 season to bring his career totals to 64 goals and 151 points in 281 games as a Senator. Zibanejad had also become a pretty productive player beyond the regular season when Ottawa made it to the playoffs, as he scored 8 points in 16 playoff games. However, the Senators weren't always able to secure their ticket to the show when Zibanejad was on the team, missing the playoffs during the most recent 15-16 season and in 2 of their last 3 years. On the flip side of this deal, we of course have Derick Brassard. Also picked 6th overall at the NHL entry draft, this time by the Columbus Blue Jackets in 2006, Derick Brassard played parts of 6 seasons with the Blue Jackets organization, where he scored 169 points in 309 NHL games, before being traded at the 2013 trade deadline to the New York Rangers, in a deal which sent forward Marian Gaborik to Columbus. The Canadian forward would spend the rest of that year, as well as the following 3 years on Broadway, where he embraced the change of scenery by playing the best hockey of his career to date, scoring 69 goals and 174 points in 254 regular season games, notching 20 goals once and hitting the 50-point mark twice. Not only that, but Brassard also became a strong playoff performer for the Blue Shirts, scoring 44 points in 59 playoff games to help guide the Rangers to several deep postseason runs, including a pair of visits to the Eastern Conference Finals and even a Stanley Cup Finals appearance in 2014. Brassard's consistent regular season numbers, coupled with his impressive postseason stats, were deemed so valuable to the Rangers organization that the Original Six franchise signed Brassard to a 5-year, $25 million contract extension on July 27, 2014. So, you have the Senators trading away a 23-year-old former 6th overall draft pick who was showing plenty of promise, but still had some growing pains before he reached his potential in the league, whilst the Rangers were shipping off a 29-year-old former 6th overall draft pick who was right in the middle of the prime years of his career, was consistently more productive offensively, and was also a proven playoff performer. Though this trade certainly turned a few heads at the time, I can see why this deal was made. The Rangers had come so close to winning a cup over the last few years, but their roster had ultimately fallen short of their goal. By making this trade, New York were able to sell high on a red-hot player, receive some valuable assets with very high potential in return, and help the roster get a little younger, introducing the fans to a new rising star who would stick around for many years to come, while the team shifted their attention from deep playoff runs to a retooling and eventual rebuild of their roster. On the flip side, the Senators had failed to find consistent playoff success similar to their trade partner, so they wanted to add a reliable, veteran voice in the locker room who had been a consistent point producer and had a wealth of experience playing hockey into the month of June. By adding this clutch playoff performer, the Senators hoped he would help the franchise lift their first Stanley Cup championship. And what better way to help the team prepare for years of deep playoff runs than by adding a player who's done it all before? Now that we know why this trade was made, let's take a look at what happened after this deal and see why one team is reaping the rewards while the other wish they could get a refund. Following his acquisition by the Rangers, Mika Zibanejad took a few seasons to adjust to the bright lights of Broadway. Once he got comfortable though, he has not only kicked things up a notch, he's hit the ground running. The Swedish forward posted a 37-point season in 56 games during his first year in New York, and a 47-point year in 72 games during the 17-18 season, but since then, he has exploded on the scoresheet, developing into the Rangers' #1 centerman, and is even in the conversation of the best centers in the entire NHL. Zibanejad has scored 30 goals or more and 74 points or more in each of his past 2 seasons in New York, including a 41-goal, 75-point campaign in just 57 games at the pause of the recent 1920 season, meaning he has scored a grand total of 112 goals and 233 points in 267 games with the Rangers. Not only that, but Zibanejad has become a leader for the Rangers both on the ice and in the locker room, as he wears an alternate A on his jersey and is considered the prime candidate to receive the captaincy in the very near future, especially if you ask the fan base. On the flip side, Derick Brassard would also have some highlights after the trade, but unfortunately he would also face his fair share of lows. The Canadian forward continued to put points on the board when he joined Ottawa's roster, but he was nowhere near as productive with the Senators compared to his time in New York, as he posted 39 and 38-point seasons between 2016 and 2018 for a total of 77 points in 139 games with Ottawa. However, he was able to continue flexing his playoff muscles, as he scored 11 points in 19 playoff games during the 2017 playoffs to help the Senators come one game away from the Stanley Cup Finals, but Ottawa fell in 7 games in the Eastern Conference Finals to the eventual Stanley Cup champions, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Speaking of the Penguins, less than 2 full seasons into his tenure in Ottawa, on February 23, 2018, it was announced that Brassard had been included in a 3-team trade between the Senators, the Penguins, and the Vegas Golden Knights, which ultimately sent the forward to join Pittsburgh's roster. Brassard would spend almost an entire calendar year with the Penguins, where he played 54 regular season games and scored 23 points, before being traded again on February 1st, 2019, this time to the Florida Panthers. After just 10 games and 4 points with Florida, Brassard was sent packing once again on February 25th, 2019, as he was shipped off to the Colorado Avalanche at the trade deadline. The former 6th overall draft pick then finished the 18-19 season with the Avalanche, where he scored 4 points in 20 regular season games and a single point in 9 playoff games, but was unable to help Colorado lift the cup, as they were eliminated in the second round of the playoffs. With his 5-year contract that he had originally signed with the Rangers complete, and having come off his most turbulent season yet, since he played for 3 different NHL teams during the 18-19 season, Brassard became an unrestricted free agent and signed a 1-year contract to return to New York, but joined the Islanders organization instead. Given his rollercoaster year prior, Brassard was able to rebound quite nicely during the 1920 season, as he scored 32 points in 66 games before the season was paused. But Oddman Rush, what about the 2 draft picks, I hear you cry? Don't worry folks, I didn't forget about them. The 2018 second round pick that the Rangers also received in the deal was later sent to the Detroit Red Wings as part of their trade to acquire defenseman Brendan Smith, and the pick was used by Detroit to select Swedish forward Jonathan Berggren, whilst the 2018 seventh rounder that the Senators got was used by Ottawa to draft American winger Luke Lohheit from Minnetonka High School. While Brendan Smith has had a rather unique experience in New York, since he's been played as both a forward and a defenseman, when he's not been a healthy scratch that is, at the time of this recording, neither Berggren nor Lohheit have played in the NHL. So you could argue that at this point in time, these 2 assets cancel themselves out, for the time being at least. So, in conclusion, though it may have confused fans of either team when it was announced, the Mika Zibanejad-Derick Brassard trade seemed to satisfy both teams' needs at the time the deal was made. The Rangers were willing to give up a proven member of their roster in order to find a player who was noticeably younger, was putting up similar yearly numbers, and whose potential was higher than their outgoing player, whilst the Senators wanted to pick up an experienced veteran player with consistent regular season numbers and a track record of being clutch in the playoffs so he could help the franchise win their first Stanley Cup. What actually happened was the Rangers picked up their next franchise centre, and maybe even the next captain of their team, whilst the Senators got a single appearance in the Eastern Conference Finals and less than 2 full years of reduced regular season production before shipping him off to the team that eliminated them in that conference finals series. Not only that, but the Rangers used the draft pick they received to help acquire a veteran player that solidified their defensive core and their depth, whilst the Senators used their pick to select a player that has yet to suit up in the NHL. I know it was a 7th rounder, but still. For the Rangers, this is probably the best trade that they have made since the Gomez-McDonough deal. For the Senators, they should have kept their receipt. And that's why the Mika Zibanejad-Derick Brassard trade gave the Ottawa Senators all the buyer's remorse. What do you guys think about this trade? Also, is there another acquisition, free agency or trade deadline you would like me to look at as part of this series? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching and goodbye. A big thank you to Antti Hannanen, Chris Gadsby, Connor B, Paul Mallia, Jordan Whitehead and Martin Tolness, as well as a huge thank you to Max Artis for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.